First glance, you wouldn't even notice that something is seriously wrong with this couple right here. Rafal and Lyah started making content on YouTube like any other influencer couple. You know the drill. Carefully curated glimpses into their marriage, cute little moments, playful banter, all presented as harmless and wholesome. But unsurprisingly, it didn't take long for things to spiral into deeply uncomfortable and painfully cringy territory. Turns out, Lyah was only 19 years old when she met her now husband, Rafal. And can anyone guess how old Rafal was at the time? Go on, take a wild guess. Well, he was nearly 41 years old. And if you think that's the worst part, buckle up. Rafal also has a daughter who's only 1 year younger than his current wife. Yes, you heard that correctly. Now, while this information may sound incredibly gross and unsettling to many viewers, we wouldn't even be discussing these two if they weren't so committed to reminding the internet about it themselves. And no, we're not exaggerating. Nearly every other video they post revolves around their sordid age gap, as if it's a personality trait. And for many viewers, it's not just uncomfortable, it's downright exhausting. If all of this is already irking you, just know that this is merely the tip of the iceberg. Rafal and Lyah have gone so deep into the rage-baiting playbook that they now regularly post racist garbage and deliver some of the most tone-deaf takes imaginable. Today, we're going to take a closer look at Raf and Lyah's content, break down what the internet has been saying, and ask the very important question: why the hell are these two suddenly all over everyone's For You page? Both Rafal and Lyah are from the United States, although Rafal also happens to be Polish. According to famous birthdays, Lyah was born on October 20th, 1999, which would make her 26 years old as of now. The couple maintains a presence across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and they've managed to gather a fairly solid following on all three platforms. Their YouTube channel alone sits at over 357,000 subscribers, while their TikTok account is nearing the 1 million follow mark. Not bad for a couple that, at one point, barely registered on the algorithm's radar. And here's where things start to get interesting. When Rafal and Lyah first began posting on TikTok, almost nobody was watching them. Around November 2020, their shared account had roughly 10,000 followers, and the content they posted back then was not particularly problematic. At that stage, their videos looked like that of any other budding influencer couple. Yes, Lyah occasionally mentioned their age gap, but it wasn't the entire foundation of their online identity. Instead, the focus was mostly on couple-centered content, relationship clips, daily life moments, traveling, and mildly cringy but otherwise harmless videos. But that approach didn't last very long. It became clear rather quickly that the wholesome couple content wasn't going to bring in the kind of numbers they wanted, so naturally, they pivoted really hard. That's when they fully embraced the rage bait pipeline, and things escalated fast. Suddenly, Lyah was mentioning how much older her husband was in nearly every single video. And surprise, surprise, it worked.
Can you say dad, 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 dad? Can you say dad's name? Can you say dad, 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 dad?
Nobody else but you. He's a little bit older, like super old. Got a bit of a tight apart from a city that's colder. But damn it, he's so hot. He knows when I'm sleeping.
That, right there, is how they built the audience they currently have, by turning their sordid age gap into a recurring storyline and milking it for engagement. Predictably, many viewers found this revelation not quirky or edgy, but deeply unsettling. The backlash came swiftly, and most of it was directed at Rafal, particularly once people learned that he has a daughter who is roughly the same age as Lyah. There are even a few videos on their channel featuring Rafal's daughter, and quite frankly, they are deeply uncomfortable to watch.
Can't stop myself from looking and noticing you, noticing me. Watch out, I've seen a type before. That girl is so dangerous. That girl is so dangerous. That girl is so bad.
Gonna make me need better, you know that. Crack even with your friend, you ain't even had me lying on you. You know that, got me.
It's disturbing that both Lyah and Rafal's daughter look the same age. While some viewers have speculated that they might be lying about their ages for attention, that theory doesn't really hold up. Rafal very much looks like a man in his 40s, and Lyah undeniably looks young. She's also introduced her parents multiple times on her page, and they appear relatively young themselves, further supporting the claim that Lyah isn't lying about her age. And just when you think it can't get more uncomfortable, here's one final detail. Rafal and Lyah's mother are only 4 years apart in age. We don't really know what to say about that, other than the fact that it's deeply unsettling and frankly gross. These are just some of the many ways these two continuously remind people of their age gap. Sometimes they talk about it directly, and other times they dress it up in a creative little script that essentially translates to, "Please, for the love of God, comment on our age gap relationship." And no, this isn't accidental. It's very much intentional.
Sun comes down, getaway car for two young lovers. Me and the girl straight out of town, over the hills and undercover, undercover, undercover. She said, green, green grass, blue, blue sky. You better throw party on the day that I die.
This particular video is a perfect example of how they genuinely have nothing else to discuss on their page besides, you guessed it, how old they both are.
Taking me out of the ordinary. I want you laying me down.
Here's another little gem, where Rafal quite literally says,
Must have been a deadly kiss. Only love can hurt like this. Only love can hurt like this.
"When I had moved to America at 15, wait 6 more years for my wife to be born, and then another 20 years for her to be legal, and now she's finally mine." Excuse us, what exactly are you trying to say here? That you waited around for a child to be born, then patiently waited for her to become legal so you could marry her? That's not edgy humor. That's not a joke. That's just deeply disturbing. And the fact that he thought this was appropriate to say out loud, record, and upload says far more than he probably intended. But as we've already mentioned, this constant fixation on their age gap is only the tip of the iceberg. Because once these two weirdos realized that they were gaining traction, even if most of it was negative, they leaned all the way in. That's when the rage bait really kicked into overdrive. Suddenly, their content shifted towards pushing conservative relationship talking points, where the husband is the leader and the wife proudly positions herself as a housewife who doesn't need to think too hard. Yes, really, in one video, Lyah quite literally said that before meeting Rafal, she had to use her brain, and apparently, she simply couldn't live like that.
This is why being a stay-at-home mom and wife has been the best thing that's literally ever happened to me. Okay, so I was 19 when I met my husband, so I was working, I had to go out in the world and use my life skills, I had to use my brain, like, I just didn't want to live my life like that, I really didn't. I'm a really smart girl, I can use my life skills if I wanted to, I just don't want to. So when I met my husband, I just felt like I wanted to be his housewife. I just felt like I would want to cook, I want to clean for him. It was like, it was calling to me, like when we got together, it was like, housewife mom now.
This video alone tells you everything you need to know about her level of maturity. She genuinely seems to believe that being a housewife or a stay-at-home mother requires zero intelligence or effort. At this point, she's giving peak brain-dead influencer energy. And let's be honest, if you're desperately trying to get the algorithm to notice you, one of the most reliable rage bait topics right now is the whole trad wife nonsense. These women preach about rejecting modern work culture while actively earning money through ad revenue, sponsorships, and platform monetization. So working is bad unless it's paying them. Lyah isn't posting this content for fun or out of principle. She wants attention, engagement, and money. And she's getting exactly that, which makes all of the he pays the bills, he's the leader, and I don't need to think talk exactly what it is. Performative nonsense designed to keep people arguing in the comments. Here's another TikTok she posted, where Lyah claims she can do whatever she wants until the second her husband says no, and then suddenly it's a no.
Guess I don't have a choice, all because I like the boy.
Alarmingly, there are many TikToks like this scattered across her page, and honestly, at this point, we can only hope they're not being serious and are just rage baiting, because if not, that's genuinely concerning. Around this time, their rage bait content was completely out of control. It wasn't subtle, and it wasn't clever, it was just bad. And unfortunately, it worked. This is exactly the kind of content that helped them grow their audience. As their visibility increased, viewers also started noticing some very interesting inconsistencies in their story about how they actually met. A TikToker named Life of Riley92 even posted a video breaking down the contradictions and exposing what appeared to be a blatant lie about their first meeting.
Something is not right here.
Because we have like a ton of videos on where we met. We talk about it a lot. But we met at a bar in 2019.
I thought she was older because she was out at a bar. And
It was.
she wasn't.
I was wearing a ton of makeup. Like, this is nothing.
Lots of makeup.
Yeah, now I'm more natural. I wear fake eyelashes, a poppin' eyeshadow.
I had a few drinks.
Yeah, so. But even okay, let me just say this real quick. But like I said in all of our other videos, I didn't even know how old he was when we started hanging out. We just hung out.
How come?
So I was working, and so I was a waitress. I keep seeing this guy like stare at me. He's not even in my section, so I'm ignoring him. So I'm like, I'm not gonna go over there. I keep staring. I'm doing my own thing. I'm going back and forth, doing whatever. And I come back out, and he's still like on my case, like.
You. I figured if I stared at her, she's the only cute girl in the whole place. So I figured if I stare at her long enough, I'll get her attention, then she'll come to me. And then finally she starts looking at me, so I'm like...
Finally, I came over there.
What did I get myself into?
Initially, Rafal and Iyah claimed that they met at a bar, with Rafal insisting he couldn't possibly have known she was only 19, because she was in a bar and wearing makeup. A truly flawless excuse, obviously, but later on, that story quietly changed. Suddenly, Lyah was a waitress, and Rafal just couldn't stop staring at her. Either way, the story doesn't get less creepy, it just gets worse. How exactly is a 41-year-old man comfortable pursuing a 19-year-old who's barely finished studying calculus or figuring out how taxes work? No amount of rewritten backstory makes that acceptable. It's deeply unsettling and super freaking gross. All of this is also fueled by another theory floating around online, that Lyah was actually friends with Rafal's daughter. And that's how they really met. Lyah has since denied this claim and stated that the story is completely false.
Oh my gosh, people are so loony. So right now I'm gonna answer some assumptions about myself and my husband. This one is the internet's favorite. I was friends with my husband's daughter when we met. That's gonna be a hard no. She actually lives in a different state, so we would have never crossed paths, like ever. I wrecked my husband's first marriage. That's also gonna be a no. My husband got divorced in 2000, and that'll be 25 years ago now.
That would have made you like 2 years old. That would have been pretty impossible for a toddler to recommend.
I have daddy issues. Also, no, I swear I was loved. I was raised by my stepfather since I was a newborn baby, so I've always had a father in my life. Can a girl just live and like old men? Come back for part 2.
Sure, maybe the story is false, but the problem is we genuinely don't know how they met, because they can't seem to keep their story straight. And when someone keeps changing details about something this sensitive, people are generally going to assume the worst case scenario. And guess what? Nobody actually spread this rumor about her. They just believed what she herself said in one of her videos.
Dark energies we don't touch, artillery's we don't touch, and I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts.
But that's not exactly the only odd detail about how their relationship supposedly began. Because TikToks like this exist on their account, where Rafal casually claims he never liked black women, but somehow thought Lyah was exotic.
My name is Pink and I'm really glad to meet you. You're recommended to me by some people. Hey, ooh, is this illegal? Hey, ooh, it feels illegal.
This video opens the door to a much bigger issue. The fact that both of them may have repeatedly pushed content that is, quite frankly, incredibly racist. They became oddly obsessed with discussing their own skin colors, their bloodlines, their races, and most disturbingly, their daughter's skin color and racial identity. That last part is where it gets especially uncomfortable. For reasons no one asked for, Lyah constantly repeats the narrative that Raph never liked black girls, but she still managed to get him to marry her, as if that's some kind of accomplishment and a flex.
I don't wanna have you to hold me down. You say I can make you feel good. You say I can make you feel good.
And that's just scratching the surface. There are countless videos on their page where they say deeply racist and unsettling things with the most casual tone imaginable. For example, there's a clip where they literally suggest that anyone can say the N-word, and the statement is coming from Lyah herself.
I just to the neck, but now I'm trophied up. I'm saying like, bing, bop, boom, 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 bop, bam. The type of shit I'm on, you wouldn't understand.
Now, for someone who constantly talks about race and skin color, Lyah doesn't exactly demonstrate much compassion or respect for her own community. And we say that because she has repeatedly implied that white men are somehow superior. Not only does she elevate white men as the greatest, but she also expresses disturbingly low and frankly racist opinions about black men. In one video, she casually implies that she married a white man specifically so he would be present in their daughter's life. This statement implies what exactly? That black men, or men of other races, are inherently absent fathers? That's one hell of a generalization. And the most baffling part, she repeated this narrative multiple times. It's not a one-off slip, it's a recurring theme.
Out to play ball so we could ruin them. Mama said that it was okay. Mama said that it was quite alright. Our kind of people had a bed for the night, and it was okay.
I love you so. You know I love you so.
So yes, blatant racism is a pattern in their content, yet somehow, despite repeatedly pushing racially charged takes, they position themselves as anti-racist and above skin color identity. Watch this video, for instance, that says, "Are you going to teach your daughter about her blackness?" No. What does that even mean? She's a regular kid. We will not install a victim mentality in her. We don't identify by skin color in this family. That toxic mentality breeds racism.
遗忘，遗忘，都遗忘去年的烦恼和姑娘。魔幻，魔幻，都魔幻。今年的姑娘更漂亮。
Well, first of all, teaching a child about her cultural history and identity does not equate to installing a victim mentality. And second, and this is important, these two are in absolutely no position to lecture anyone about racism, for very obvious reasons. These two are literally obsessed with skin color, not just their own, but their daughters as well, which is honestly just pathetic. For obvious reasons, parents shouldn't be plastering their kids all over the internet in the same place. But if they insist on doing that, the absolute bare minimum would be not dissecting their child's looks and racial identity for engagement. Yet both Raph and Lyah seem deeply preoccupied with the fact that their daughter doesn't look mixed. They've posted countless videos analyzing her features, her complexion, and whether she passes as one race or another. And if that wasn't enough, Rafal posted a particularly enraging video that will genuinely boil your blood.
Sugar, oh honey, honey, you are my candy girl.
Again, we understand the formula. They say something outrageous, people flood the comments, and the algorithm pushes it farther. But using your extremely young daughter, her racial identity, her skin tone, as a prop for rage bait, that's just gross. At this point, it wouldn't even surprise us if most of this strategy was Raph's idea. No wonder a 19-year-old felt impressed by him, because the intellectual bar does not appear to be very high here. At the end of the video, we would like to show you a video that Lyah posted on their TikTok, and it says, "When they say my husband will leave me for a younger woman, me remembering that I'm 26, but look 18.
One. Block.
So let's unpack that. She's essentially implying that her 45-year-old husband is attracted to 18-year-olds.
Ugh. Brother, ugh. What's that?
Sometimes it genuinely feels like we need to log off of the internet permanently. Why are people like this rewarded with platforms? It's beyond us, and the frustrating part is they're not even unique. Scroll through TikTok long enough and you'll find dozens of creators who've turned rage bait into a full-time career. We've even covered some of them before. Mama C, for example, the mother who built an audience by lying, scamming, and fabricating stories about social benefits. Or Natalie Reynolds, whose entire brand revolves around provoking outrage. In fact, in her pursuit of attention, she once pushed a woman into a lake, and that woman nearly drowned.